Good evening. Welcome to another recorded episode of Monday Night Talks from me, Kripa Moya. And tonight's subject is the Srimad Bhagavatam. Hoping you can hear me. Hoping I'm coming through clearly. Very good. Mohini, Hare Krishna. Can you hear me all right, Mohini? How's your hearing? Lovely to see you on a Monday. I don't think we had a Monday last week, did we? It's coming. Where was I last Monday? Somewhere. Loud and clear, that's good. That's what we like to hear. Well, second prize tonight goes to Edward Sanderson. That's very good. And the third prize tonight goes to Ariane and Connor. Hare Krishna. And Jeremy and Sam. Hare Krishna, Udavasaka. Doing cartwheels off the back of Cambridge Rath Yatra. Tirthakara, Tushar Bijur, Paul Donald. Yeah, very good. Nice to see you all. I'll just wait a couple of seconds until you all come in. Sharada Davidson, nice to see you. Lisa, Hare Krishna. Yes, you had a bonus Wednesday. Yeah. Well, I hope it was all right. I was a bit tired on Wednesday, but we did something, didn't we? I even forget what we did. It was so tiring. Had a busy weekend this weekend. On Saturday I went to Crawley, which is near Gatwick Airport. And it was the Bhakti Yoga Centre of Crawley. It was their patrons evening, annual patrons dinner. So I went there and I spoke. Very nice dinner it was too. And my talk seemed to be okay. Then Sunday yesterday, we had a Simantanayanam celebration for my son's baby to be, 8-month event. And then we had, 5 challenges was the last talk. And then I went to a 50th birthday party. Anapayani's here. Very good. Pete is here. James Howell is here. Well, now you're all in. Now they're coming thick and fast. We've passed the magical dozen, so I'm off. Well, look, I thought tonight I should put my hands together just in case I trim the video. Namaste, Hare Krishna, and welcome. I thought tonight I would speak on a simple subject, but which we don't often speak about, and that is the Srimad Bhagavatam. Yes, I know I refer to it quite regularly because it's the stock in trade for a devotee to refer to the Srimad Bhagavatam. But we don't often go over the overview, as it were. So I thought I'd do that for you tonight in a short but hopefully punchy, more punchy presentation. So here it is, just for you. Alex, Hare Krishna, great to see you. I'm just about to write to you, Alex. Don't give up on me, not yet. Annie Lane, just about to write to you, don't give up on me yet. I think you're now a member of the mentorship group, so that should be fun. Okay, so the Srimad Bhagavatam. Look, we have 2 books, mainly. Well, we have 6 if you count all the other small books, but the 2 books we're really serious about. One is the Bhagavad Gita, of course, which is the discussion between Krishna and Arjuna. But the other book is known as the Bhagavatam, the Srimad Bhagavatam, or the Bhagavat Purana. So Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavat Purana. Bhagavad Gita is 700 verses, easy to read, relatively speaking. Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavat Purana is 18,000 verses. Lifetime to translate from Srila Prabhupada, and a lifetime for us to read, possibly. But you can read it if you read a chapter a day. And if you read a chapter a day, according to Vaisheshika Prabhu, you will then be known as a Chad devotee. Chad, chapter a day. So the Bhagavatam is important for us because it fills in all the details that Krishna leaves out in the Bhagavad Gita. And as Krishna and Arjuna are the frame for all the dialogue in the Bhagavad Gita, the frame for all the dialogue in the Srimad Bhagavatam is about, well, I count up to 7 dialogues all going on simultaneously. But what's happening is a king is cursed to die, King Parikshit. He's cursed to die by a boy sage who thinks that he's insulted his father. Well, he did insult his father. The king was desperate for water. He was out in the jungle. And he came to a yogi who was deep in meditation. Yogis and kings have an uneasy relationship. But the sage didn't welcome him. And the king took this as an insult. And of course the yogi didn't welcome him because he was deep in meditation. Just sitting there. Or as someone who's very active and praises others who are very active, they would say, he was just sitting there doing nothing. As people say when we read the Srimad Bhagavatam, why are you just sitting around all the time reading? Or why are you just sitting chanting the same 3 words over and over again? What's that going to do for anybody? So the king, he saw a dead snake on the ground, and in a fit of anger, a burst of anger, he picked up the dead snake and wound it around the yogi's neck like a garland. And of course the young son heard the king, and the young son came back home after going to the river, and he saw that his father had been insulted by the king. And even though the boy was only young, 6 or 7 or 8, he cursed the king, and because he was the son of a very powerful yogi Brahmin, the curse had to be accepted. And the king, he said, I curse you to die within 7 days, which was a childish thing to say to the king of the region. Nevertheless, the king took it that his fortune was that he was going to die in 7 days, and he did die within 7 days. But this kick that he got of imminent death was that he would, like Arjuna, go in search of the truth. Arjuna went in search of the truth. He didn't have to move. Krishna was right there for him. Arjuna wasn't an imminent threat of death. But he was, if you think that at any moment he could have died on the battlefield. Could have died. But in this case, the king knew that he was going to die for sure. I suppose we should also think like that. When our time is getting near, we should think the way that Parikshit thought. He said, I will ask questions to the best people that I know. I've insulted a king, so I've insulted a sage, so let me gather together all the sages and see if they will give me not protection from death, but that is all right, let death come, but what I should meditate on at the time of death. So one of the sages that were there, so the king waited and the sages tried to give him answers. He wasn't completely satisfied. And then a naked blue-coloured sage came. His name was Shukadev. And he was actually the son of Srila Vyasadeva. You know his name, of course. He came into the setting and everybody looked at his physiognomy and they declared that he was a great Mahapurush, a great devotee, great liberated sage. And they gave him the prime seat, the Vyasa-san, as they should have done because he was Srila Vyasa's son. And so the king asked him the questions. Now, that discussion, questions and answers back and forth, went on for 7 days, a whole week. And one of the sages sitting amongst the thousands in the assembly was Sutta Goswami. Later on, after the king dies, Sutta Goswami is surrounded by another group of sages in a forest, said to be a forest at the center of the world, Namasharanya. And they ask Sutta Goswami, please tell us, they have a list of questions, which I will come to later. And he says, well, I'll be able to tell you the answers to this because I was present when Shukadev was teaching the dying king Parikshit. And therefore I will say what he said. So, in the Bhagavata Purana, we encounter the meeting in the forest first, and then the recounting of the story of Shukadev and Parikshit second, although historically speaking, the king and Shukadev happened first, and then Sutta and the sages happened afterwards. So there's questions put to Sutta Goswami. They asked him 6 questions. Please remember these. You should come to my sessions with a piece of paper and a pen. You never know what you might learn, right? What is the highest good for humanity? That's the first question. Out of everything that we could do in life, what's the highest good? This is a very good question to ask someone who has wisdom. And if they're from the Labour Party, they will say, you should behave like this. If they're from the Conservative Party, they say everybody should behave like this. If they're from any other political party or movement, they will say, no, we have the answer. But it's a good question to begin with. If you want to know a person's ultimate values, ultimate morals, and where they think not only them and you and the rest of society should be headed, that's a great question. So number 1, what is the highest good for everybody? Fundamental question, and the answer to that question makes up the whole Bhagavatam pretty much. But here's the details. They say that the Vedas are very vast and people's lives are very short. Please extract the essence of all scriptures for the benefit of humanity. What a great question. Another great question. Because sometimes, isn't it, that we went on our spiritual search and we came to the Bible and we heard of something called the Quran and the Torah and the teachings of Confucius and, all the other different scriptures, the Zend-Avesta for the Zoroastrians. So many different good books in the world that have a good message. Can you now please put them all in a blender and whiz them up and give me a flavor of what the best possible advice is from all religions? What's the essence of all scriptures? So then that leads Sutta to talk about bhakti. So the next question, I hope you're writing these down. Why did Krishna appear as Devaki's son? The reason that asking that question is Krishna has only just recently left the planet. He's only just recently left the world. And so they want to know, because Krishna was within the world for more than 120 years. So it's a big chunk of time. And many amazing things happened. Please tell us, why did Krishna appear as Devaki's son? Another question there. it's sort of telling, because why did Krishna appear indicates that Krishna had a choice. And if the question was put to me or you or anybody listening tonight, anybody watching tonight, we would say, well, I was just born. I didn't choose. Although the New Age people say, well, we choose our parents. Well, no, you don't. Someone else chooses for you. There's no function of choice before you came into your parents' womb. You're not self-directed. You're directed by the modes of material nature. But Krishna chooses. So why did Krishna appear indicates choice, and he had a purpose to fulfill. Bhagavan Sattvatam Pati. For what purpose did the Supreme appear in the womb of Devaki? So they want to hear, what was Krishna trying to accomplish? Why was he born? They want to hear about his activities. Of course, this nicely lends itself to Vyasadeva's desire to fulfill his promise to his guru, Narada Muni, that I will write a book that has all of Krishna's activities. Question number 4, please describe Krishna's wonderful pastimes. So knowing that Krishna, or hearing about Krishna, purifies the heart, they ask Suta Goswami to narrate his activities in detail. So from this we get the whole of the 10th canto. 5th question, very famous verse. Bruhi Yogeshware Krishne Brahmani Dharma Varmani Swakashtam Aduno Pete Dharmakam Sharanam Gata. Now that Lord Krishna has gone back to his own abode, where's religion gone? Where has religion taken shelter? What do we do now? When he was here, it was easy to understand. Krishna was personally present. Now he's gone, where do we go? And then Suta Goswami, he gives the amazing answer that this, what I'm telling you now, the stories of Krishna, and what I heard from Shukadeva Goswami, that is now the literary incarnation of Krishna. If you hear it, that's the same as being in Krishna's company. 6th question they put to him, they said, now please, okay, that's great. We can't wait. Can you please now narrate the Srimad Bhagavatam? So they asked Suta to recount everything he heard from Shukadeva Goswami concerning the king who's about to die, Maharaj Parikshit. So he was there in the crowd, but he managed to listen to everything. That's the amazing thing in those days, no microphone. But he was able to hear. There was pin drop silence on the bank of the river. And then he begins telling them what was the king's questions to Shukadeva. If you think what I'm telling you now is complicated, you should wait until later on in the Bhagavatam when there's 7 different conversations stacked like Russian dolls within each other. So the king is sitting in front of the person that everybody says he's the best person to teach you. He knows. And he says, Ata prachami sangsidim yoginam paramam gurum purushasya iha yat karyam mrimanasya sarvata. Therefore I ask you, Shukadeva, the spiritual master of all yogis, what is the duty of one like me who is about to die? What should I do? What should I do? What's my duty? What should I do? What should I hear about? When I'm dying, what should I be listening to? What should people around me speak? What should I try to say? What should I chant? What should I remember? Who should I worship? What should I do? And what should I avoid? These are wonderful questions, very important questions. You shouldn't, at the time of death, just hear the nurse, the doctor, the bleeping of the machine by your bedside in the hospital to which you've been taken. You shouldn't just hear your relatives blubbing. You shouldn't hear your children apologizing for things they could have done when you were old. None of that. What should you hear? What should you do? What should you remember? Well, you should try to do what I'm telling you now, Shukadeva Goswami says. He says, excellent is your question, O King, because it is beneficial for all humanity. In other words, the conversation we're about to have now is good not just for you or the sages listening here, but it's beneficial for everyone. What a wonderful conversation we're having. So, all these questions, 2 sets of questions. Upon those 2 sets of questions, Bhagavatam begins. So the primary conversation is between the king and the boy sage. Secondary conversation is the Sutta Shonaka forest discussion. So there are different discussions that Shukadeva talks to the king about. Let's see if we can go on to the most important thing here. Okay. So first of all, we get a sort of declaration that, an explanation of the relationship between Vishnu, the incarnations of Vishnu, or avatars, a list of the avatars, and then a famous verse, Eti Changsa Kala Pumsam Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam, where it is described that this is a list of the incarnations, but the Bhagavan Swayam, the chief of all these, the fountainhead of all incarnations, this is Krishna. And so with this verse, I think it's Canto 1, Chapter 2, verse 38 or 28, something like that. Or is it Chapter 3, verse 28? I'm sure one of you will tell me. But we can't really proceed. It wouldn't be the Bhagavata Purana if we didn't first of all define our terms. What is Bhagavan? Bhagavat means of Bhagavan. Who is Bhagavan is defined in this chapter, and that is Krishna. And then when we get to it's 350 chapters in the Bhagavata Purana, and 90 of those chapters have to do with Krishna's life. So it's pretty much, the center of the book. And people have compared the book to the first and second canto, like the feet of Krishna, but the 10th canto is Krishna's face. So when you're dealing with the face of the person, face is the index of the person themselves. So the 10th canto is really the main part of the book. If Krishna was not Bhagavan, or the Supreme God, then there would be another personality described. So in the beginning here we hear this explanation that there are many incarnations. Krishna is the source of all of them. We also get an understanding of the situation in which the Bhagavatam is being spoken, a bit of the history of the Kurukshetra war. If you read Bhagavad Gita, you get to know what happens before the war, don't you? But when Krishna says, Sarva Dharma Pratyaja, that's the end of his teaching to Arjuna. And immediately, a few minutes after that, the actual first battle of 18 days begins. The battle rages for 18 days. That's the war, the Kurukshetra war. But we have to turn to the Mahabharata to find out what happened. So both the Mahabharata and the Bhagavata Purana, they tell us what happened after the war. The funerals, the carnage, how many people were killed, what the great sages said about it, what happened afterwards, the grief, the bereavement of the wives of the warriors, how the battle was over, but people wanted to keep fighting. And then it comes to a striking scene where Krishna is chasing someone known as Ashwatthama, who has let loose a Brahmastra, or as Prabhupada translates it, a nuclear weapon fixed to an arrow by mantra. This arrow is chasing Mother Uttara, who's the wife of the dead warrior Abhimanyu, and she's pregnant. And the arrow is trying to kill the latest in the line. So there's Arjuna, he's here, but his grandson, Abhimanyu, is Arjuna's son. He was killed in the battle. Now they want to kill the child in the womb. So Krishna comes to intervene, chases down Ashwatthama, and there is some dialogue there. So in the first canto we also find that description of bhakti is given, and why bhakti is important. In other words, because Krishna is important, bhakti is the highest path to selflessly serve Krishna and be reconnected to Krishna. This is all in the time after Krishna's human advent. That's Canto 1. Canto 2 is sort of a cosmic vision, description of Paramatma, universal form, yoga processes to understand God, why bhakti is the best. Canto 2. Shukadev gives Parikshit, the king, a summary of the entire Veda. He tells him about meditation, the relationship between meditation and bhakti, and the nature of the Supreme Person, or Purushottama. Then in Canto 3, you'll see how quickly I'm going through, you'll be relieved. Canto 3, we have a mother known as Devahuti, who in ancient days understands that her son is a great yogi, a great teacher, and she asks him very similar questions to what the king is asking about devotion and meditation and yoga and what to do at the time of death. And it really is a spiritual masterpiece. It was recreated as a book in itself called the Teachings of Kapila Dev, Teachings of Kapila. So Kapila goes through different forms of philosophical analysis of the world around us, Sankhya philosophy, yoga philosophy, liberation through the path of bhakti yoga, and the nature of the mind and the nature of the ego. He talks about all these things. In Canto 4, when I tell you this, we'll be we'll be a third of the way through. Canto 4, we have two wonderful stories. One concerns the Prince Dhruva, who was told by the Queen that he would never accede to the throne. It's all palace politics, isn't it? Palace politics that cause kings and queens to go in search of the truth. But Dhruva Maharaj, you know the story, he heads off to the forest because his mother says that I have heard that in the forest there are sages. Inquiry from them can fulfill all your desires. He goes into the forest, he meets Narada Muni, who gives him the great mantra. Say it with me. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, which Dhruva chants for 6 months, gradually reducing the amount that he eats. And he has a vision of Vishnu who comes to him. And according to one Shastra, he says that, my Lord, I was looking for broken glass, but now I found the greatest jewel. So his story is told there. And then also Narada Muni, who is established as the greatest teacher. He's Srila Vyasadev's guru, So in the 4th canto he appears as the guru also of Dhruva, but also the guru of a king known as Prachinabarhi. And Prachinabarhi is told a story by Narada, which is an allegory, meaning that it's not true. I think we touched on this a couple of weeks ago. So the story is of a mystical city, and there are 9 gates in that city. And that city, of course, is the human body, so every facet of the human body is conceived as being a gate or a tower or a fire or a river or a snake or something within the city. It's a fantastic tale. And then at the end, King Prachinabarhi realizes that he's been given an allegory of his own life, and so he does the decent thing and he takes to bhakti. In Canto 5, we find a great... Well, he was a sage, he was a king sage, known as Rishabh. And he had 100 sons, one of whom was Bharata. Bharata took to the throne and had 3 lives. That is notable. I'm sure he had many lives, but up to that point, as we all do. But in this particular life, he became a king. He renounced everything, and he took to the Himalayas to meditate. Deep in his meditation, he heard the sound of a baby deer, with whom he immediately fell in love with the baby deer. And every day, gradually, his meditation was breaking earlier and earlier as he fed the deer and watered it and made sure it was safe. And at the moment of his death, he thought of the deer only, and in his next life he took birth as a deer. But the curious thing was he could remember everything in the life of the deer, and he said, well, I'll never do that again. So in his next life he became a man who was deaf and dumb. His father sort of gave up on him and put him out into the fields to be a human scarecrow. While he was there, a powerful king, or a king, had some power. He was being carried by 4 men and on a palanquin, little seat, sticks. So they set the king down, and he said, what's the matter? He said, well, one of your servants is very tired. He said, well, what about that man standing in the field? Go find him, he looks strong enough. So they brought him over and they put him to work. And of course, Jad Bharat. Jad means quiet or unable to speak. They gave him a position, but then the king was rocking around, and he said, what's the matter? He said, because Bharat had seen ants on the floor. He didn't want to step on the ants. And so the king said, put me down. And then he said, who do you think you are? Don't you know who I am? And then Bharat, that dialogue is, well, I know who I am, but you do not know who you are. You think that you are the king, but and he gives him what could be construed as a confrontational dialogue, but actually it was a wonderful dialogue, reminding the king of his true position. So this is a story, of course, it's being told to a king. Narada Muni's story to Prachinabarhi is being told to a king, and usually this is the great form of teaching, telling someone of somebody else just like them who heard a message. I really must get a better cup. This is a sad cup. So, then comes one of my favourite, is Cantos 6 and 7. We find is possibly the most beloved section of the Bhagavata Purana after the 10th canto, which is Krishna. And this is the 7th canto of Prahlad. Seventh canto of Prahlad. The whole story of Prahlad and Hiranyakashipu is well known to you, I know. But maybe less well known is the dialogue between not only Prahlad and his father, but between Prahlad, his teachings to his father, and what Prahlad said to Lord Narasimha afterwards, and Narasimha said to him. So these form the quintessential teachings of bhakti, and they're worth studying. So, 8th chapter we have, my favourite section is the Gajendra, the king of the elephants. And this is a very powerful section. And actually, when I went to the palace of the king of Travancore, I went to his estate from hundreds of years ago. There's a bathing place. You go down the steps to the bathing place. But it was there that the king was most vulnerable, because he wasn't surrounded by an army. He was just gone to have a bath. So it's like there's a lake, and the lake comes into the bathroom. But on the wall of the bathroom is the picture depicting Gajendra, the king of the elephants, being saved from the ferocious crocodile by Vishnu, who's riding on the back of Garuda. So this big mural, beautiful. And you'll see that motif all over India, particularly South India. And it's the motif of the kings. And they used to have this motif that Vishnu will come to save you if you are troubled by a surprise attack of a crocodile-like opponent. So 9th canto we have the story of Ramachandra and other related stories. Story of Krishna's incarnation of Lord Ram is there. And then we get to the 10th canto. And of course, this is the spiritual crown. But we have the childhood pastimes of Krishna, first the birth and appearance. Firstly, why the agency by which Krishna descends. Firstly, the Mother Earth in the form of a cow goes begging to Lord Brahma. The demigods accompany her. They chant the Purusha Sukta hymns. And the Lord listens in the middle of the milk ocean, says, I'm coming, I'm coming. They say, Pahi mam, save us, he says, I'm coming. Then Krishna appears. You know, the situation in Mathura, King Kamsa being locked in the dungeon. And then we have Krishna's childhood pastimes, beginning with Putana. And each of these demons that Krishna destroys have been linked to one of the qualities in our heart that we're trying to destroy. We have Govardhan Hill, the lifting of Govardhan Hill, another favourite pastime. Krishna playing his flute, gopis being attracted to the sound of Krishna's flute, the eternal night-time under the moonlight, Rasa Leela dance. We have Uddhava's messages to the gopis once Krishna and Balaram have left Vrindavan and gone to Mathura, promising that they will come back. They never come back. So a year or two later, Krishna sends Uddhava as a messenger. We have the story of Sudama Brahmin, who goes to visit Krishna when he's in Dwarka. We have the story of Krishna coming from Dwarka to meet the inhabitants of Vrindavan, now older. And it's not the same. They say, when you were with us as a boy many decades ago, you played a flute, you herded the cows, and you were sweet and charming. Now you come before us as a soldier, a king, with your breastplate and armor, riding on a big chariot. Please, come with us back to Vrindavan. And this is the theme of Rath Yatra, that we are pulling the chariot of the Lord of Dwarka back to Vrindavan. We have the prayers of the Vedas, we have so many things, and ultimately we get, of course, Krishna's disappearance from the world, and how that was arranged. You all okay so far? I hope so. In Canto 11, chapters 7 to 29, we have the Uddhava Gita. Krishna speaks 700 verses to Arjuna. These are 1200 verses that he speaks to Uddhava. So there's another complete Gita, but a bit more detailed. And these are Krishna's final teachings before he's leaving the world. He talks about the visitation of 9 naked yogis to yet another king. And they have names like Prabuddha and I forget. They have different names, obviously. And they give different teachings. It's in this chapter also, this section, that we find about the 24 gurus, the nature of bhakti compared to jnana and vairagya, and how they telescope into bhakti as components. We find out how to live in Kali Yuga. And in Canto 12, we sort of have that wrapped up for us. Canto 12 talks about Kali Yuga's progress. Why the Srimad Bhagavatam is the ripened fruit of the whole tree of Vedic literature, and why the process of Sankirtan is the supreme activity out of all the recommended activities of bhakti, which in itself is the conclusion of all the messages of the Vedas. So the Vedas conclude in Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga concludes in chanting the name of Krishna. And finally, that's the end. And Parikshit is visited by the Takshaka snake, just as he put a snake around the boy sage's father, around his neck. So he was also killed by a flying snake, it is said, at the end. And you might expect the Bhagavatam to tell us how he was protected and he didn't die. But the Bhagavatam describes, of course, that he physically died, but his soul was perfectly liberated by the message of the Bhagavatam. Good. Thank you very much for listening. That was an overview of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Hare Krishna. Very good. Thank you very much. We've got Hare Krishna, we've got Jane Mutter, we've got Deepak Bora, we've got Adina Trott, John Reed, Marianne Stewart. I'm just reading your names as you are here. Your public name. We've got Hemo Krishna Bandhu, Hannah Howell, Hare Krishna Hannah, received your letter and read it. Thank you very much. I'll be getting back to you. My correspondence may be a little slow at the moment. I've had a busy weekend and I'm going up to Inverness in Scotland on Wednesday morning. It only leaves tomorrow to write to some of you that I dearly want to write to, but I may not have the time. So, glorious devotees, I wonder if you have any questions on the subject upon which we have been speaking. We've got 15 minutes till the end of proceedings tonight. Or it can be questions that have come to you as we've been talking. Or it can be questions that came to you during the week. Let's see if we can push this up to 30. We're currently now on 28. Meanwhile, I look in admiration at the Wisdom of the Sages podcast, who deal in thousands every day are listening. And now they do it every 3 times a week, don't they? So if any of you get an opportunity to read the Srimad Bhagavatam, and please do, it is meant to be, just as it was the thing that Prabhupada translated every day of his sort of preaching life, his missionary life. He translated it every day with the hopes that we would read it every day. A whole set of the Bhagavatams will cost you £100 and something, but it's definitely something to buy yourself for Christmas or for any momentous time of your life. And you can begin to read the Bhagavatam on January the 1st. And you may not always want to read all the purports, because that's a lot, but if you can read the verses, and you'll easily get through it. I know one sannyasi who begins on January the 1st, and by Christmas he's finished the whole thing. So do consider it as a project. At least Prabhupada said that every home should have the Bhagavatam, and everybody should read it. Now, you thought that your job was over if you read the Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam. Deepak Vora says, always good to have a refresher overview of the Bhagavatam. Thank you. Yeah, it is, isn't it? It's good for me too. Good for me too. It is said that the Bhagavatam, Edward, you have read it. Usually takes you 13 months. Okay. I guess you're on just under a canto every month, which is amazing. Elaine says, I read the Srimad Bhagavatam with another devotee once a week, and sometimes others joins us. So you're reading it at the moment. It's such a wonderful experience. It gives me accountability to go on. We're now at the end of Canto 6. Wonderful, Elaine. Thank you. So Elaine, you hardly need to come in on this Monday session. You're already getting the ripened fruit. So Pete, I'm going to call Pete Odd Question Pete. The lady who gave Krishna, you always surprise us with a odd question. The lady who gave Krishna fruit in the 10th canto is a lovely pastime, but why would Krishna give her jewels in return? Yes, well, Krishna doesn't always give pure devotional service. He gives you what you're interested in. Therefore, you have to be careful what you're interested in. If you come to Krishna wishing for love of God, Krishna will be very happy and give you that. If you are looking for cash, Krishna will give you cash. Krishna's very kind. It's not what he wants to give you, it's what you want. He's a wish fulfiller. Just like Prabhupada said, he said once there was a lady who had a big stack of wood on her back, as you sometimes see in other countries. She collected firewood for cooking. Big stack of wood on her back. And it was a bit wobbly, and she was coming back home, and it fell off and scattered the load all over the path. And she said, "Oh, Narayan, Narayan, Narayan." And Lord Narayan appeared in front of her and said, "Yes, how can I help you, sister? How can I help you, my lady?" She said, "Can you put the wood back on my back?" So here's Lord Narayan. He could give her anything at all, but she wanted the wood put back on her back, because that at that moment would be, she perceived that as being the best help that she could have. Just see, we can approach God for anything, but sometimes we don't ask for the right thing, do we? So therefore, the Bhagavata Purana is a book which, through the questions of the king, who is asking the right question, i.e., what should I do at the time of death, or just before the time of death? What should I be asking for? What should I be praying to God for? He's asking the correct question. So therefore, through him, we can understand that we should also be changing that. And sometimes we ask questions of Krishna, or sometimes we don't ask Krishna at all, do we? We don't speak to Krishna. We don't speak to him at all. If you don't speak to someone at all, don't try to have a relationship with them. Or don't be surprised if the relationship doesn't develop. If you don't talk to Krishna at least once a day, why would he help you once a day? He's there to help you. It's not like Krishna wants you to fail in your business of becoming Krishna conscious. He wants you to succeed. If you ask him, it'll come a lot quicker. So why don't you ask him? Why don't you speak to him? That's the whole push of the Bhagavatam. So Mark says, I think a lot of us pray for protection from this increasingly precarious world. Yeah. So this is Bhumi. These are the prayers of Bhumi and the gods, the devatas. They're known as suras, or the divine beings, but they have a tendency to pray to Krishna only when the chips are down, only when they're suffering. And some of us are like that, aren't we? Oh God, help me, help me, help me. When something's going really badly, God, make my car start. Oh Krishna, help my car start. Krishna, help me find a parking place. We hear that sometimes. So the point is that we shouldn't be cheap. Bhakti is about going to the master of everything and asking the best questions, asking for the best thing. Sarada Davidson says, thank you so much for the overview. I'm reading the Srimad Bhagavatam with my mother most days and joined a reading group. Where are you? When they were finishing Canto 10, so read Canto 11 and 12. Yeah, a lot of people, Sharada, have not read Canto 11 and 12. They haven't read that. Sometimes people even think there's no such thing as Canto 11 or Canto 12. Some publishers have even stopped at Canto 11 because they say, well, that's the part that Prabhupada translated. So they stop and they use Krishna book as Canto 11 and skip out on Canto 11 and 12 because that's not translated by Prabhupada. Therefore, how could that possibly help you? But it's the end of the book. It's the end of the book. You should have the complete book. And she says, if we pray for bhakti, will protection follow anyway? Yes, because you have performed at the same time as reading Bhagavad Purana, you have performed what is known as Sharanagati, which means two of the 6 elements of Sharanagati, is to always understand that Krishna will be your protector and maintainer, that everything that you need will come to you from Krishna, and all the protection that you need, so that those things that have come from Krishna will not be taken away, such as your health, your wealth, your family, etc., that will be protected by Krishna. So if you fully trust in Krishna as you're performing bhakti, if you're surrendered, then that is true bhakti, and Krishna will give you all protection. Jane Mata says, thank you for your, we're looking forward to your visit to the Highlands. Yes, I'm coming. Isn't it amazing, coming to the Highlands? Last time I was in Inverness, I came up to do a wedding. And I did this wedding And that was the last time. Wedding at Skibo Castle. Elaine says, I don't know anything. I'm just having a taste of it all. Mark Herbert says, I read Srimad Bhagavatam every day, but not a whole chapter. Can't wait to retire. Yeah. Well, make sure that when you retire, you don't forget your promise. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Adina. Some of you have been going to the various Rath Yatra festivals at different times around the country. It's become a new craze. We also have one in Western Supermare. Adina Trott, she's helping to put that on. Navigating. So, Adina, where is that? Along the seafront in Western Supermare. What's the date? Can you remind us of the date? Anybody who's in that area, please do go. There was a wonderful chariot festival or Rath Yatra in Liverpool the other week. And we've just had one in Cambridge. And there's another one on the same day as Cambridge was in. Where was it? Swindon or Reading or somewhere like that. Popping up everywhere. We have 3 sizes of cart. Small, medium and large. Elaine says, Uddhava Gita is very deep. I follow a course taught by a devotee. Sharada says, I'm currently reading Chaitanya Charitamrita. Just started Antilila. Wonderful. Jane says, I used to work in Skibo Castle. Wow, did you? Did you work there when? I wonder when. I won't bring that up. Paul says, is it okay to read an electronic version or should one only read physical books? Just read it, electronic or physical. I'm reading your messages now. I'm reading off a computer so that Krishna will find a way. So Western Rath Yatra is the 1st of August, 12 p.m. Start on the seafront. Let's all meet up there. It's the first one. And Lisa says Cardiff Rath Yatra is on the 8th of August. And I think, if anybody can tell me, that Glastonbury Rath Yatra is the next day, is it? Glastonbury Rath Yatra, or is it in September? Either way, wonderful things. Derby are having their first Rath Yatra this Sunday. It's exploding, isn't it? Good Lord. Who would believe it? Pulling a chariot along the street and singing. Of course now, Glastonbury is 2nd of August. Okay. Udvasaka, are you going? Adina, are you going to Glastonbury 2nd of August? I'm sure you are. It's a highly colourful, quite cosmic Rath Yatra. If the weather is good, there's no better place. All right, I should stop. I've given you your hour. It's free. If you want me to go on longer than an hour, then you have to pay me. Pay me in gold coins. Yes, Udvasaka's a farmer. So the harvest comes first. All right. Thank you, everyone. You've been lovely. I've enjoyed giving you this Bhagavatam overview. Thank you very much for listening. And I shall see you. I may not be able to see you next Monday because I shall be in Inverness, so I'm not quite sure of my broadcast facility. I'm usually sitting in my bedroom. And sometimes when I go to America, I broadcast to you from the front lawn. Do you remember? Front lawn in New Jersey. But yes, we shall see you. I shall see you, Mary Smith, very soon. Jeremy Crow and Sam, thank you. Alex, I'm writing to you tomorrow. Pete, thank you. All right. Hare Krishna. Oh, Scott, you've been hiding. It's only when you say thank you at the end that I know who's been hiding behind the screen. Hare Krishna. Thank you all for your company. Hare Krishna.